Okay, good morning. Greetings, everyone. This is the community meeting for the month of September. I feel like September is the fastest month I think I've ever experienced. I don't think I ever remember time going by so fast ever before. Like I was like, what? How is it how is it how are we at the end of the month already? So weird. It's almost already October. So, I mean, I know I was feeling like summer was going by pretty fast, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh my gosh, we're at the end of September already. Um, and so that was a really interesting feeling. And then it feels like for me, I've been like in and out a lot of like just feeling a lot of myself like being in a lot of different places at a lot of different times energetically, and having to really get grounded, get really like um focus myself. I've been feeling disoriented and having to really focus myself and like root down in order to take care of the day-to-day things. But what I've been realizing is like when I do the day-to-day things, when I do the routine things, when I'm like, let me just clean the kitchen, let me just do the dishes, let me just do laundry, it's actually I'm really realizing how supportive it is to do those things. So whereas like I think an old pattern would for me would be like getting a bunch of messages, getting a bunch of downloads, getting like being really feeling really cosmic, and then neglecting my everyday life and feeling like I need to just be like escaping, I guess is the best word that I'm thinking of right now, but instead actually like really being present for like the day-to-day thing. So like more presence has been helping me. Also, I was saying not isolating myself, because a big tendency for me is to isolate myself, whether it be like actually physically isolate myself and like introvert super hard, or even being with people and isolating and like not sharing and not like expressing what I'm going through. And it's been interesting because a lot of I've for the last 6 months I've been in this intensive psychic development program with like I don't say program, but just like work with my spiritual teacher, and have been opening up more of my gifts and my abilities. And so I've been simultaneously more sensitive than ever. And also like when you do that, of course, a lot of stuff just comes up that you have to, learn to work with, whether it be like old memories, other lifetimes, other timelines, dreams get more intense, like everything just gets more intense. So I've been doing that at the same time, limiting my like public appearances, limiting my like events and stuff that I'm doing, and just basically focusing on you guys like in the school as like my priority, not doing much else. And I'm just starting now to be like, okay, I'll do some events and like other things like that. Um, and I'm just noticing like how I'm balancing it all. And my partner's here too. And so it's like there's just a lot of things that are up right now for me. And obviously I imagine that that's reflected in the collective as well. And everyone's different version of that. Everyone's got their own version of that. But all that to say that there's just been a lot. And I've noticed there's been a lot of invitations to be really distracted with nonsense, drama, gossip, online, all kinds of whatever nonsense. And just been really important for me to like stay away from places and spaces and conversations where like people are inviting me to be in drama, and just really staying focused on what I'm doing. So all that to say, I'm happy to be able to kind of like go more into intimate combos here in this space with you all, and just like dive deeper into some things. So The monthly community meeting is always a chance for you all to ask me anything, to ask me questions. I'm pretty much always down to answer any questions unless it's just a question for me that just feels irrelevant. But I'm going to bring people on today because I think it's a good practice to have you all show up for this work. So I'm going to bring Daphne on. I'm going to promote you to panelist so that you can ask your question directly. Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Hi.
Yeah.
I hear you and I don't see you. I don't know if that's intentional. It's fine
I
if
don't
you don't.
know. Oh, there it is. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Hi.
Hi. How are
How are you?
you?
I'm well.
Good. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you also. My question is around purpose versus career. So I have these two things that I love very much, and I've been doing since I was very, very young. I started acting when I was like 7, and I was brought into it by my parents. And I stopped for some time, and due to like bullying. So that's been like a wound I've been working through. And as an adult, I found that I love directing. And I
Cool.
find that, and that was a lovely surprise, right? And I enjoy doing both of them. And I imagine those two things would be a career, right?
You
That's
didn't
it.
name
Those are,
you didn't name the first one.
oh, directing and acting are
Acting.
my career paths.
Cool.
So I'm trying to figure out like how how does my like what is my purpose? I think maybe that will help me um not get so bogged down by all the rejection that comes along with it.
Mm-hmm.
Um I think my purpose is to like authentically like 100% be myself, and it's much easier to be that to live through that as a director because I'm creating the world. But
Mm-hmm.
as an actor, I can't do that. That's up to, like, my job is up to other people.
Mm.
So, I guess I'm conflicted on how can my purpose be, can it be different for other things, or does that make sense?
Yep. Okay. So what I always say about purpose is that, I mean, you nailed it, but I also want to just give a little bit more context. What I always say about purpose, it's that it's a being thing. It's not a
Okay.
doing thing. And so when you are aligned with being on purpose, that can show up in your life in so many ways, right? For example, it's like one of my one of the years that I did retreats, we did a retreats that were specifically for people who are creatives and entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked a lot about prosperity and abundance and aligning with your purpose and all of that. And for me, one mantra that I always gave people was I am on purpose. Because think about energetically, if you are going every day into whether it be directing or acting or something, and you have this feeling of like, oh, this is my career, and then like one day I'll figure out what my purpose is, right? And feel the difference between that and if you were to wake up every day and say, I am on purpose, right? What happens when you are embodying that I am on purpose energy is that you find yourself in different situations and different scenarios throughout the day all the time where you have the opportunity to be on purpose. That may mean, for example, that in a particular moment, you know, you are given an opportunity to open the door for someone or to offer someone some inspiring words or to offer someone some wisdom and some guidance about something, right? You're going to be put in all of these different situations where you can be a vessel for something that's greater than just the human self, right? And the more that you embody that, like, I am on purpose, I'm available to be on purpose, I'm available to be in service, I'm available to show up in these ways as it's needed, right? Yes, absolutely. It's going to take on other forms. It may take on the form of like writing a book. It may take on the form of like doing things that also relate to your natural gifts and talents. But your purpose is so big. It's so huge. It can't be pinned down to like one thing of like, it can't be pinned down to one thing in the 3D world, but we have this idea of like, you know, the form that it needs to take. And then also when we do that, we don't allow our purpose to change, right? Let's say like you're like, I love acting, I love directing right now, but let's say in 2 years from now, it doesn't resonate and you've told yourself, but this is my purpose. What you end up doing is like closing the door to whatever the next thing that you're kind of like is available for you to do, because you're so thinking that it has to take this form, right? If you were to just open up to like really how big your purpose is, and essentially like the easiest way to tune into it is like what you said, which is like to show up as authentically as you can and be who you are. And for me, that's an energy. That's an energetic thing. And I hear you, when you say, you know, when I'm the director, I'm able to do that. But I would also imagine that like even when you're given a role as an actress, that you're going to channel that character, that role different than someone else would. Like you're going to be able to bring in, maybe that's the initiation for you. Maybe that's like the test that you're going to have to figure out how to be in these different scenarios where you can bring through something that is authentically yours, that is authentically you. Like, how would you make it your own? And, you know, I'm not an actress, but I hear about people being like a method actress or actor, right? Where they actually like become the character. I always perceive that as channeling, right? So it may be that part of your purpose is to be a channel and to like, how do I bring through the energies of like what this character would be and make it my own, right? It's just like anybody who's a channel, like there's a lot of people that channel the same frequencies I do, but they don't describe it the same way I do. I use specific words. I use specific inflection, intonation. I hold it and I carry it in a different way than someone else would embody that exact same energy or that collective or that being or whatever. So I think there's a lot of range in there. I've always thought that actors and actresses were channels. They're the ones that I feel something with. I've always thought they were channeling something. So that's a possibility that like you're a channel, you're a conduit, and that it's about like getting the mind and the human part of you out of the way to be able to bring that energy through so that other people can feel what you're feeling, like bringing it through and conveying it so that other people can feel it and be moved by the energy of it. Like when I'm looking at purpose, right, like that has so many strands that it can take on that being an actress could be training you for. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think for me, like in general, when it comes to things like bullying and all that kind of stuff, like there's also a lot of that energy in my field right now too. As my work is growing, there's people that are feel triggered and feel really catalyzed by, you know, what I'm talking about, what I'm sharing, or just by me, or whatever. And it is something that ultimately I am reminded over and over again that it's a muscle to be able to like get thicker skin is like a muscle. It's not like I'm gonna be less sensitive. right? It's that I'm going to get thicker skin,
Mm.
you know? And I would love to be like, here's this magic thing you can say or do where you won't feel it. But just like with when you're building a muscle, it's repetition. You have to keep doing it over and over again. So that does mean that you're going to have to be, if I'm going to say have to, but if that's an energy signature that on a soul level you're needing to learn from and work through and experience, it is going to keep showing up, and you are going to have to get thicker skin, and you are going to have to energetically on some level learn how to be in the place where like you're in your bubble and you're not blocked off, but that things bounce off of you.
Right.
And I can say that it does that like outer layer does definitely like develop over time. But there is no magic formula for that.
Cool.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, I'm going to put you back, okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, cool. Okay, Melissa, you're ready? Okay. Hi. You might have to unmute your microphone on the bottom left down.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, I can.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry, I kind of have a pathological fear of being on camera, so.
Wow. Well, thank you for saying yes.
Yeah. So the question I had was around, well, actually, I felt that the previous question actually kind of dovetails into this in a sense in terms of talking about purpose and mission.
Uh-huh.
But am so overwhelmed lately with the downloads that I'm getting. And it's happening where, you know, before it was like a slow arc, you know, there was this like, and now it's like super intense. So over the course of a day, I feel like a different person. And so, or like that I'm in a different timeline or a different reality, like it's happening fast. And so my first question is how to deal with that overwhelm. And I know you've given lots of strategies in the past, but you know, any further advice that you have. And then the second question I had was around, because I'm feeling that overwhelm and I'm spinning my wheels in other areas of my life, I feel like I can't focus on the message and I can't focus on what my purpose or my mission will be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like creatively.
I feel like there's a couple of different questions in that right in there. One, your mission's not going to go anywhere. So it's okay if you're like, if you take the weekend off from your mission, so to speak, right? Like if you're like, I'm actually going to just like allow myself to process this download or whatever's happening right now and then like kind of get back to it. It doesn't mean that you're neglecting it. It doesn't mean that you're running away from it or that you're like taking a left turn and you're gonna completely get lost. And the other thing I would say is that like you can always ask for it to be dialed down. For sure. You can always ask for like the amount. You can always tell your guy, like I talk to my guys the way that I would talk to anyone. I'll say, you know, I'm like, I have to say, like, because they don't know, because they're not embodied. I have to say, like, I need to be able to live my normal human life. And I need this to come in a way where it's not so overwhelming. I need it dialed down. Right? Like I need it turned down. Yeah. I also know that like there's certain plant allies. I think I mentioned rue online is a great one for like kind of like
highly allergic to rue. I found
Oh, you are? Okay, what about flower essence?
It makes me hallucinate.
If you smell it?
Just if I take it, if I drink
it. Okay. So you can smell it. You can spray it. You can take it as a flower essence, because as a flower essence, it's just vibrational. It's not any of the plant matter at all. Okay. And So that's one thing for me that will dial down, like it will help kind of dial down, literally just smelling it kind of, it's like, it just like clears the channel, and it just, I don't want to say it tunes me out, but it definitely turns things down. And also just, you know, I think like as we're like learning how to experience our gifts, like I think we forget that we can ask for things to come in a different way. You know, like my guides like to give me a lot of information, and my ability to like tap into information from them is like pretty great and pretty vast. And part of like what I'm doing right now is learning how to be in a different type of relationship with them, where like I just hang out with them, where you know, it's not just about them giving me so much information and all of that. So that's, you know, obviously I'm sure you know this, because we all have had times where we're like, I don't want this ability, and like have turned it off or tuned it off. So all that to say, it is a radio dial. You know, you can turn it all the way off, you can turn it all the way up, you can dial it down a little bit, you can adjust it to be what you need, so that you can you can experience it the way that you need to experience it. And then you can even say, I need to dial it down for now, but you know, I have more space next month because I don't have so much work, right, or whatever. And you can create the intention of like, give this to me later, right? I know some people say things, for example, like when they're like, I was in a grocery store and I was getting a download and I had to like leave. And I'm like, okay, you can, or you could say, put it on hold, give this to me later tonight.
Okay.
You know, so I mean, just know that, like, know that you can ask for what you need 100%. There was one point when I was like, don't give me anything during the day, only give it to me at night when I'm sleeping. And then I was realizing that I was like, my sleep was severely disrupted, right? You know, so it's an adjustment. Like, you know, you can make a request, and then you can experience it that way. And then you can be like, oh, actually, I don't like that. Let's do it this other way, or whatever. Like someone said, can you put this on the shelf for now? How does that sound?
Yeah, that's helpful.
Definitely. Okay. And then also the other thing I would say is sometimes, you know, not all information that comes through is relevant, right? It's not necessary. It can feel like it's relevant. It can feel like I need to share this and I need to write all this down and this is all information. And then sometimes for me, it's actually more about like learning how to ask the right questions. Because if I'm getting a massive amount of downloads about like Lemuria or something, and I'm just like, what? Okay, but I need to know right now about da-da-da-da-da-da. Like, so that's the thing. It's like asking the questions, how to ask the questions that you need. Like, is this or is this that? It's like, it's your right to dial it how you need to.
Mm. Yeah, I'm definitely also feeling the distraction theme. Like I'm feeling intense distractions that are kind of just coming out of nowhere in terms of like actual things in my life and things that are, you know, invented in my head.
Right. Yeah, and so for me, like a lot of times, like maybe social media break, minimizing the like amount of responsibility I have to do. I might, like I said, this summer, I pretty much put a lot of projects on hold. I've changed to timelines multiple times with my project in Tunisia. You know, I've been going every month to see my grandmother in Philly, which is a priority, and just arranging things in a way where it's like, I want to be able to prioritize what I need to do and what I want to do, and also know that my mission isn't going to go anywhere. Yeah. Like, Tunisia's going to happen or whatever. Like, I'm not like, oh my God, if I don't do this right now, it's, you know, whatever. It's like, no, I can do it in a year from now or whatever. Like, it's fine.
And I can ask for support in terms of my relationships too, right? Like a supportive relationship or, you know, supportive friendships, that sort of thing, right?
100%. Absolutely. And call that in and visualize what that would feel like and what that would look like. And and also just like remembering to call in more earth, more, there it is, more support from the earth.
Yeah.
You know, more earth energy. Like a lot of times we're thinking that like I need to get this support from like this other person or whatever, and it doesn't. My cat's trying to play games. It doesn't mean that that's like not the case. However, don't also forget about like calling up earth energies to because a lot of times what we're actually looking for is support in the lower three chakras, safety, stability, right, all those kinds of things. Call that up from the earth. Absolutely. Right. And then you might find like, oh, I actually didn't need to tap into like that other person as much as I thought I needed to or whatever. Just play around with it like it's totally all available.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, cool. All right, thanks for coming on. I'm gonna put you back. Okay, let's see. Looking at the Q&A. Okay. Dolce, would you want to come on? Let me know in the chat. I love this question. Around community and isolation. This is the theme I've been talking about all morning right now. Okay. Okay. Hi. How are you? You might need to unmute your microphone on the left.
Hi.
Hi. Did I say your name?
No, my name's Dulcie.
Dulcie. Okay.
Yeah.
Dulcie. Okay. Thank you for coming on. Can you share your question?
My question is how to be in community and not isolate yourself when there is circumstances or whatever happening in your life that's preventing you from being in the physical and connecting in that way that is desired.
How to be in community when there's physical distance? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or you're unable to be present in the physical due to not being able to be out for long periods of time or talk with people due to illness, circumstance, that sort of thing.
Okay. I think for me, I'll answer that and then I'll also share a little bit more. I think for me, like I have a lot of opportunity to be with people. I get a lot of invitations to people that want to, spend time, hang out, do something, be together, events, like, right? And like I have a limited, whether it's a story or it's the truth, right now, it feels like that I have a limited bandwidth for, or limited capacity to be in spaces. And because it is an old story and it is an old pattern for me to isolate, I've actually been pushing myself outside of my comfort zone, and I've been saying yes to more things. I've been going more to events. I've been, whereas I would like procrastinate, I would be like, oh yeah, I would like kind of make tentative plans with people, and then I'd be like, and then like the day would come and I wouldn't be feeling, for whatever reason, like 100% ready. And I'd be like, oh, let's just do it next week instead. Like constantly putting it off. And what I've been realizing is like, of course, I'm still working on enmeshment trauma, and I'm still working on like that feeling of people like, like wanting something, wanting a lot of energy, or like maybe I'm feeling good and then like, the other person comes and I'm not really feeling their energy, and then like I want them to go. Like that, the reality is that there's a lot of times when I'm like with people and I'm like, I'm not into this or whatever, right? Like that whether it's a story or whether it's the truth, right? And I have been realizing that that is a story, and I've been challenging myself, and I've like for sure not been saying yes to things where it's like a full no, right? Where it's like I'm not actually desiring connection with this person. But if it's people that I actually am desiring connection with, and I feel that there is a connection there and there's something I want to nurture, I've been pushing myself to go ahead and meet up with people, to be outside of the house more, to, where I would normally like maybe order food, go out to eat, be outside, go, even if it's something as simple as like go somewhere, like I have every tea you could want in my house. So it's not about having tea, but maybe go somewhere, go to a tea shop and sit and like talk to people, right? So I've been really challenging myself to be more social, and in a way that feels good for me, because human contact, human interaction for me is, I'm realizing is a lost art, because there's so much access to like social media and online, and like there's that safe distance. It's like, oh yeah, I'm connecting, but it's like, no, you're not. I'll speak for myself, and I'm like, I'm so different in person than I am on social media. Like in person, I'm just like very open and talkative and whatever, and then on social media I like don't like to interact with people. So I'm like, okay, well then I need to push myself to kind of do more of the being in person. So all that to say, I've also been looking into like, okay, so where are classes that I can go, and I can like, maybe I can go somewhere and meditate, maybe I can go take this kind of class, maybe I can go to a sound healing, all the kinds of things that I like to do. Or even like I had an event on Saturday, and the owner of the establishment asked me if I wanted to like go out to eat afterwards. And normally I'd be like, oh no, I gotta get back home, my son, da, da, da. And then I was just like, I'm just gonna say yes, I'm just gonna do it. And it was so good. So all that to say, I've been pushing myself and proving myself so wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Proving myself actually that like the kinds of people that I am attracting in my life right now are really great, that I do really enjoy time with them. Granted, like limited, I know me, it's a limited amount of time. I think that's the thing that I realized after a certain amount of time is like when I reach my bandwidth. So even giving myself permission to go to events and stay for half the day, that's a lot for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big deal for me. If like I went to see Byron Katie like last month, I stayed for half the event. I was like, that was great for me. So just like staying a little longer, like I feel that pushing ourselves a little bit out of our comfort zone right now is going to be super important, especially when it comes to social engagement and interaction. And I'm feeling like community is such a big theme that's up. And again, community doesn't have to look like you spending the whole entire day with people. It could be talking to your neighbor. It's like an actual community, like who's around in your community. It can be going for a walk and just talking to people. Whatever it is, if you're doing it with presence and with intentionality, you're going to see so much about yourself reflected into like what's an old story and what's an old pattern that is not really needed anymore. And what's actually available now that can be supportive for you. So yeah. So I think I think it's consistency is all that I mean to say. I don't think it's about how much and how long. I think it's consistency is more of the medicine right now. As long as you're doing it consistently, as opposed to like this thing we do where we're like, I'm going to spend this whole day with someone once a month, and then like the rest of the month I'm going to introvert. Little bit more consistency, even if it's shorter, I think is the thing. So I've been challenging myself to go out at least every day and do something. Someone said that's literally me. Yeah. So like I'll hang out with someone like one time and then I'll be like, I'm complete. I did it. Whereas now I'm like, no, I'm doing more of a consistency. And the last thing I'll say is that I've been having conversations with people about isolation. I've been having specific conversations with people. So I'm just putting it out there. I'm like, I'm really working on my isolation right now. Actually, one of my friends texted me today and she was like, what is holly flower essence for? And I was like, oh, I know it's for like jealousy and envy and like anger and resentment. And she was like, can you send me the description from your flower essence encyclopedia? So I looked it up, and actually the first thing that it says is for is isolation. You know, and then isolation that gets to the point where you start to have jealousy and maybe envy and then maybe a little FOMO, you know what I'm saying? Like it might be subtle, but you might say like, oh wow, like people are like out doing stuff. And there's like a little part of you that's like, I wish I had my version of whatever that is. So holly actually is a flower essence that supports that. So that was really cool confirmation around just like that's the theme right now. That's big. And I see so many people online on social media craving intimacy. It's like blaring at me of like people want intimacy. So actually when I had my event on Saturday, I was not feeling it. I was not feeling like being with people. And it was exactly what I needed. It was exactly spot on. It felt exactly right. And like just getting that confirmation of like, I'm going to show up even though I'm like in the middle of this massive download and it's like all this other stuff to me related to other lifetimes and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, how am I going to talk about this topic right now? It feels so off track. And I don't know if you were there on class on Sunday. I felt the same thing. I felt like totally like not there in a way. And then in the beginning, and then when Taya was talking, she was just like, right pace is prayer, and her voice. And like, I was just supported because like we're close friends. And like, I was like, oh my gosh, right. So yeah. I think isolation is a big lie right now that we're being asked to challenge, and to like see where we are still telling the old story of like enmeshment and intimacy trauma, and where it's like actually not the reality of what things are for us. So yes, I hope that was helpful.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna put you back in, and thank you. Okay, let me look at some of these other questions. Okay. Oh, Aisha said it's my first community meeting, and I'm wondering if my question could be answered without going on camera. Of course, never any pressure to be going on camera. Aidita, do you want to come on camera? Okay. So I'll answer your question, then I'll answer Aisha's question, and then we will be at our time. There's two Aishas. Hi. Oh, you might have to unmute your microphone.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry.
Nice to see
Yeah,
you.
nice to see you too. This is probably my second community meeting, and
cool.
I always find myself surprised in my recent trajectory because I'm not sure if I can give a little bit of background
Sure.
or before asking my question. Only if it's if there's enough time for everyone. I come from a very different world, and I came from very different mindsets, and but I kind of had my feet both in the sort of way that the current structures of the world operate, based on very sort of like Newtonian thinking and all of this stuff, but also had my feet in sort of spiritual and mystical traditions. And I'm feeling that there's a constant tension coming with those two sort of schools of thought that are coexisting in me, because I've been experiencing a lot of like coincidences, a lot of synchronicity, and one school of tradition that was the primary one that I relied on for most of my life has been the one that telling me like, oh, this stuff is not real, so don't worry about it. It's interesting to learn about and think about human experience, but very academic and intellectual. But like I'm realizing that it's as real as any other thing, and it's kind of freaking me out, and I don't really know how to deal with that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. If you have a lot of like, it's interesting because like I don't want to say that like when you have that like really strong intellectual mind that it blocks, but it actually can really block the part of you that is like kind of more connected to whether you want to call it like mystical, supernatural, just playing in those other realms. It can definitely block it because for me, actually, the way that I experience and understand, like really dropping into like my intuitive senses and like my other ways of awareness is to completely move out of the intellectual mind, right? So anytime I find myself trying to like lead through like logical thinking, I'm aware that I'm only going to be able to access things that are in the part of my logical linear mind that are related to my memory, like what my memory can tap into and what it already knows. Whereas when you drop out of that and you drop more into the intuitive mind, I feel how I experience is that you're connected to the field. You're connected to something that is like what I call the universal mind, which is like some people call it Akasha, like the Akashic records or the field of Akasha. It's just this field of information that is beyond my own linear knowing, my own personal knowing. So yes, I'm able to tap into ideas and inspiration and imagination and synchronicity and just this all of this. And someone said, "Wow, like you have like such a great memory to remember all this information." I was like, I'm not pulling this from memory. Like I'm pulling this from the field of information that is beyond even what I know, right? And I'm translating it into language, right, through that logical lens, but I'm definitely tapping into some. Jung called it the collective unconscious, right? And Jung talked about how oftentimes some of the first ways that we access this field is in dreams, right? This is why when Jung was studying the collective unconscious, he noticed that there were archetypes and myths that were the same in different indigenous and native cultures all around the world, even though they didn't have any contact with each other. There were these stories and these myths and these sort of archetypes that were the same all over. This is also why people, why there's been this phenomenon of people being able to access the same idea or invent the same thing in one part of the world and another part of the world with them not having any connection or awareness. Of course, now there's the internet, so it's like it's less about like it's less, you know, about like there's not communication, because there is that communication. But during when Jung was studying this work, again, it was synchronicity. He was the one that actually kind of like coined the term synchronicity. That's why I'm referring to him. And he talked about symbols and dreams and things, right? Because sometimes when you have a synchronicity, in and of itself, it doesn't have any meaning, but it has meaning to you in your psyche and the part of you that is, you know, the subconscious, which really its language is symbolism, right? So something, for example, for me, I see my birthday, right? 3/18. In and of itself, there's no like law or rule about what like 3/18 means. But for me, I have come to know that as a synchronicity that has to do with like rebirth or transformation, right? So if I see something, if I see that number show up, it has that symbol for me. Some people see 1111 and that has a particular symbol or meaning for them, right? So all that to say that yes, it absolutely is like coming into a new way of seeing, coming into a new way of being or understanding. And if you had previously had either judgments or taboos or resistance to it, it's natural that your logical mind's going to come in, because that's the belief system that's there. It's going to come immediately in and say, don't trust that. That's not real. That's just your imagination, right? So of course that's running simultaneously, because that muscle had been strengthened for so long of what you said, of like, this isn't really something to pay attention to. Whereas like someone, for me, I was taught about synchronicity when I was a child from my mom, and I was told synchronicity is when it's a symbol of when you're in the place that the universe wants you to be in, right? It's like letting you know when you're like, when you're where you're meant to be in the universe. So I always, as a child, always noticed synchronicity, always saw synchronicity, always experienced it. And also, I think synchronicity is an indication of awakening. I think synchronicity is an indication of like you tapping more into the connection with your higher self, or your intuitive self, or your soul self, however you understand it. I'll give an example that happened this week. My partner is here visiting, and we're going to LA for the weekend. And she said, I would really love to see Ali Wong live, just randomly. She was like, I would love to see Ali Wong one day. For whatever reason, intuitively, I said, look up her tour dates. Let's see when she has tour dates, if she has any other tour dates this year. And I said, and look specifically for LA, because I feel like we'd probably have a better chance of finding something in LA. And she looked it up, and Ali Wong is playing in LA this weekend that we're going for her birthday. Right?
Wow.
So for me, that's pretty typical, right? It's pretty typical because there's like some part of like, for me, the field is like picking up on a desire, a need, a possibility. And rather than me ignoring what the urge, right, the impulse, the idea that didn't come from my logical mind, came from the intuitive mind that was like, look it up, see what you can find, right? So to me, that's like something, whether you want to call it, you know, your higher self or whatever, is orchestrating something because it knows more than what you logically know. I couldn't have known in my logical mind that that was going to be happening, right? But a greater part of me that is not bound by my logical mind, is not bound just to this physical body, but is also not separate from me. It's also me, right? Does know that and can give me that impulse intuitively. And because I'm attuned to picking up on those impulses and feeling them and like getting a little goosebump or some kind of little nudge, right, to do something, I know to take action in that moment, and I follow through. What most people do is they feel that impulse and they ignore it because it doesn't make logical sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's very easy to ignore those impulses when you're the only person that is, and like you experience a coincidence or a synchronicity in your daily life, and it is just like, oh, that's cool, that's awesome. But when it involves other people in the transpersonal sort of sense that you just described, that, you know, it involves Ali Wong, who's an actual person out in the world and doing her own life. And your desires and your partner's desires. And so, like, you know, I might have a need for a certain conversation to happen, and that conversation just happens without me prompting. And that really, really freaks me out because I didn't say anything to that effect to do that. Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. It's in the field and it can be picked up on. And the thing is that like people who are energy workers can actually like feel into, see into what is active in your field, right? And we can also sense and feel and start to know what's active in our field, whether it be a desire or whether it be a possibility or whether we're just getting this little impulse like, I don't know why, but this like idea just bubbled up of like, maybe I'll go to this particular, you know, coffee shop, right? And for me, the way that I understand is that, you know, whether you want to call it your destiny or your purpose or your highest possibility in life is like, it's not just on me. There's the universe is also participating and orchestrating my path, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's things that are being worked out for you, right? Maybe it's just as simple to call it God, right? To say God is aware of like where you are and where, you know, God wants you to be and the path that can get you there, and is giving you the impulses and the breadcrumbs to get there. And it's not a linear path, right? It may be that every like it may be in your mind that, you know, if to get from A to Z, this is the fastest route. That's what your logical mind's going to tell you. But your intuitive mind may say, don't go that way, go this other way, because for some reason, there's some part of the field that is aware that there's a traffic accident that you're going to get caught in, right? Or like an impulse that says, you know, leave this event now, right? Or something, or like, you know, another example that I had, and some people can relate to it more when it's like something to do with a child. I was headed on a job interview one time, and all of a sudden I had this huge just flash of an impulse that I needed to go to my son's school, you know, and it was so clear, so strong. It wasn't a fear, right? It wasn't like, oh my God, something's wrong. I was just like, I need to go. And I like left. I was going to a job interview, and I like rerouted. I was like, I don't know why, but for some reason, I need to go to my son's school. Went to my son's school. There was this whole thing happening. And they were like, did someone call you? Like, and I was like, no. And I told my son, you can always let me know when you need me and I will get it. I've always told him that, you know? And I said, remember I told you that? I was like, that's why I'm here. You know, and some people that might be like, that's too much. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, because I know that we have that connection, that telepathic connection that he can tap into. I was like, I can feel, like, as a mother, I can feel when my child is calling me. Right? I have a couple people that I can be dead asleep, and my phone is completely turned off, and they will wake me up out of their sleep. I will go to my phone and I'll pick my phone up and they will be calling me. I will be dead asleep. Right? There's only a couple people that I have that with. But that happens too, right? Like, there's so many, and so some people only experience it when it's extreme. Some people only experience it when they're like, I knew my mother was in a car accident in that moment, or I knew my grandfather passed away. Like, some people only experience it when it's like those kind of stronger things. And my point is to say is that it's also available in subtle things, like getting tickets to a comedy show, right? And things that might seem silly, like, why would you go this way? Like, I believe in parking karma, all that stuff. I asked the universe to work out, like, tickets, parking, the cookies I want in the grocery store. I'll go and they'll be the last pack is there. And again, it might be like, well, how did that get worked out? How did that happen, right? But it's an orchestration. It may mean that, like, one person was like getting ready to get 2 packets of cookies and they were like, I'm just going to grab one. And then that left one for me. Like, it's an orchestration of the field of many, many parts of non-physical and the unseen realm, because we're not separate than that. And for me, I have no problem broadcasting to the field what I need. Some people don't feel comfortable. They don't feel it's right. They don't feel it's real. I don't have none of that. I will ask for what I need to happen very clearly, and people might be like, you're so lucky, you're so blessed, or why do things always work out, or whatever. Like, I've been wanting to have someone help me rearrange my house and take care of my house, and I was like, maybe I'll hire someone. And then my partner was like, I'll help when I'm there. And I was like, I don't know why. Last week I had a friend that says, I'm moving back to the Bay. Do you know anyone that needs that has a room? Here's what I'm open to. I could even barter. And I was like, would you be open to barter for staying, for helping? Yeah, boom, done. And my partner's like, you always work everything out. And it's, my point is that I'm not any more blessed than anybody else. I'm just willing to ask for things, and I know they're going to work out, right? Like, if it's in the highest and best good, it's not like I want to manipulate anyone, right? It's not that. It's just that there's possibilities that are there, and I'm not afraid to tap into them, and I'm not afraid to ask for them to be shown to me. And when I get that impulse or that urge, for me, I'm like, yes, it's synchronicity, but it's also just the universe working things out. And that's why I know we don't have to struggle so hard, work so hard, break our heads to try to get things to work out. When we bring in that support, and like we're in gratitude for the fact that there's, like, whether you want to call it your ancestors are working it out for you, your angels, like whatever the belief system is, I'm very, very clear that I'm precious to the universe, and that the universe wants what I want for me more than I probably even do.
Yeah, thank you so much. I realized 2 things in your entire spiel there, is that by sort of cutting, in the previous years, by cutting myself off from this realm of the universe working with me, rather than just being something that I live in, was also something that was me rejecting my own traditional beliefs. And also that I have been asking for things without really knowing that I have been, and they have always worked out. Yeah, that's incredible. And thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy that was helpful. So yeah, I mean, and also, like, for sure, like how I was saying to Melissa, it's like, you can, for me, I ask for a lot of guidance. It's my main thing I ask for. I ask for guidance and I ask for information. I don't really ask for things necessarily as much, but I do. But I ask for guidance. And so just know that if you're like, this is too much guidance, this is too much synchronicity, too much interaction, you can definitely dial it down and take your time and like do it at your pace.
So I guess it's also like my body adjusting to this new way of being.
Your nervous system kind of being like, hey, I'm more open to this, right?
Yeah.
And like what it means. And also just recognizing, I know I always say, like, for me, like coming out of the closet was coming out of the closet as an intuitive, because it is still a big taboo and there's still things people are like, you know, that people that have their own ideas and their own stigma, whether it be people that think it's totally not real, or I grew up Muslim, so a lot of times it was jinn, 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 you know, that like there's bad in the unseen realm. Whatever the belief is, it's still something that people are uncomfortable with. And so I didn't want that attention for a really long time. And I realized, because there's so many people that have questions, that are getting disinformation, that are starting to feel sensitive, I knew that it was important for me to step forward and talk about my experiences, because I do think that I do experience it in a way that feels very beautiful and feels very empowering. And I just want people to know that's a possibility. So,
Awesome. Thank you.
yeah. Okay, I'm gonna put you back. Okay. All right, loves. I feel complete today. I know I didn't get to all the questions, but I definitely appreciate all of you that came on camera. And next month, I'm very, very excited. The guest that we have is such a dear person to me that I've been doing a lot of deep, beautiful work with. And it is our first male teacher. He's an indigenous healer and energy worker. Very, very, very gifted person, I will tell you all. This is definitely a class that you don't want to miss. And the whole theme in general, we're going to be talking about masculine, feminine, divine union, and all that kind of stuff. And coming into more wholeness within ourselves in the micro, and then also what does that mean in the macro for male, female, and how we are going to create reconciliation between male and female, and just be in that conversation. So I'm really, really excited to be having this conversation and having this particular guest. So I love you all. I will see you all in the portal soon. I am going on retreat second half of October, so the classes are going to be back to back at the beginning of the month. So just note the dates. The classes will be kind of more back to back than typically. So love you all. Okay, see you soon. Peace.